Arya remained calm. Her silver skin seemed to shimmer with an inner confidence that contradicted her recent struggles. She began explaining her adaptive biological modification research, using simple terms that even a non-specialist could understand. Helena watched the presentation, her professional mask slowly changing. What started as polite disinterest transformed into genuine fascination. Arya's research suggested radical possibilities for human medical treatment, genetic modifications that could help humans survive in extreme environments. This could change everything, Helena muttered, more to herself than to anyone else. The research focused on a revolutionary concept, genetic adaptability. Arya had discovered methods to modify human cellular structures to withstand extreme conditions. Radiation exposure, low oxygen environments, temperature variations, all could potentially become manageable through her proposed genetic interventions. Jay listened, understanding more with each explanation. His medical background helped him grasp complex concepts, while his practical experience provided critical insights. He asked questions that challenged Arya's theories, not to undermine her work, but to strengthen its scientific foundation. Helena's unexpected visit became a turning point. She worked at a mid-level research institute that occasionally took risks on unconventional projects. Arya's work was precisely the kind of groundbreaking research that could attract institutional attention. "I can't promise anything," Helena warned. "But I'll share your initial findings with my research director." Hope, a feeling Arya had almost forgotten, began to resurface. Her months of isolation and rejection were slowly transforming into potential opportunity. Jay continued supporting her. His apartment became more than just temporary shelter, it became a collaborative workspace. He used his professional network, making careful introductions, protecting Arya from potential institutional prejudices against alien researchers. Their work required patience. Scientific recognition wasn't achieved overnight. Each day brought small victories, correcting research methodologies, refining complex genetic models, building a comprehensive presentation of her theories. The city outside continued its relentless pace. Government offices processed immigrant paperwork, research institutions maintained their strict hierarchies, and countless dreams remained trapped in bureaucratic systems. But inside this small apartment, something extraordinary was happening. A human medical technician and an alien researcher were challenging established scientific boundaries, one research model at a time. Arya's translator device, once broken, now worked perfectly. It wasn't just a translation tool anymore, it had become a bridge between her scientific knowledge and human understanding. Helena's initial report to her research institute created subtle ripples. Innovative research always attracted attention, especially when it promised potential medical breakthroughs. Arya's work suggested solutions to problems that had long challenged human medical science. As weeks turned into months, their collaborative effort began taking shape. Jay's practical medical knowledge complemented Arya's theoretical research. They were an unlikely team, a local emergency medical technician and an alien researcher, united by curiosity and shared scientific passion. The research crystals continued projecting their complex genetic sequences. Each holographic image represented more than just scientific data. They were fragments of hope, carefully constructed arguments against institutional rejection. Arya looked at Jay, realizing how much had changed. From a desperate, homeless researcher to a potential scientific innovator, her journey had been transformed by a single act of human kindness. The city outside remained unchanged. But within this small apartment, a quiet scientific revolution was beginning, one genetic sequence at a time. The Research Institute's conference room felt like a battlefield. Arya stood alone, her silver skin reflecting the harsh fluorescent lights, facing a panel of senior researchers who looked more like judges than scientific professionals. Dr. Marcus Thompson, the Institute's lead researcher, studied her proposal with a critical eye. His reputation for crushing unconventional research was well known. Behind him, a row of colleagues waited, their expressions a mixture of skepticism and barely concealed prejudice. "Your research suggests genetic modifications that could fundamentally change human adaptation," Thompson said, his voice cold and calculated. "But where's your proof?" Jay sat in the back of the room, his presence a silent support. He had used every professional connection, every favor from his medical network to get Arya this hearing. Helena Rodriguez, who had initially introduced Arya's work, watched the proceedings with nervous anticipation. Arya's presentation was meticulously prepared. Her research crystals projected complex genetic sequences that danced across the room's large screens. Each image represented years of work, challenges overcome, and a vision that went beyond traditional scientific understanding. These modifications, Arya explained, her translator rendering her words with clinical precision, can help humans survive in environments previously considered impossible. Radiation zones, extreme temperature regions, low oxygen planets. The room remained silent. Scientific skepticism hung in the air like a thick fog. Thompson's team looked for weaknesses, searching for any opportunity to discredit her work. But Arya was prepared. She had anticipated their challenges. Each potential criticism was met with carefully documented research, comparative studies, and theoretical models that demonstrated the potential of her genetic adaptation theories. Jay watched, his medical background helping him understand the technical nuances. He saw what the others missed, not just the scientific potential, but the human story behind the research. The hearing lasted hours. Questions flew like intellectual arrows. Thompson and his team probed every aspect of Arya's research, looking for fundamental flaws. But with each challenge, Arya responded with calm, systematic precision. Outside the conference room, the city of New Aurora continued its indifferent rhythm. Government offices processed paperwork, research institutions maintained their hierarchies, and countless scientific dreams remained trapped in bureaucratic systems. But inside this room, something extraordinary was happening. An alien researcher was challenging established scientific boundaries, presenting a vision that could revolutionize human understanding of genetic adaptation. As the hearing progressed, subtle shifts occurred. Some panel members began leaning forward, their initial skepticism replaced by genuine scientific curiosity. Helena noticed these changes, a small smile forming at the corners of her mouth. Jay's support had been crucial. He had helped Arya navigate the complex human research ecosystem, protecting her from institutional prejudices. His practical medical knowledge and professional network had opened doors that would have remained closed to her. The research crystals continued projecting their complex genetic sequences. Each holographic image was more than scientific data, they were arguments against institutional limitations, carefully constructed visions of potential human evolution. As the hearing concluded, Dr. Thompson made no immediate decision. But the absence of outright rejection was itself a small victory. Arya had survived a process designed to eliminate unconventional research. "We will review your complete proposal," Thompson said finally, his tone suggesting neither complete acceptance nor total rejection. Arya looked at Jay, a silent communication passing between them. They both understood that this was just one battle in a longer scientific war. Challenging established systems was never easy, especially for an alien researcher in a human-dominated scientific landscape. The conference room slowly emptied. Researchers discussed, argued, and debated. But at the center of it all stood Arya, a beacon of scientific determination, her silver skin reflecting not just light, but possibility. Outside, New Aurora's evening lights began to illuminate the city. Another day of scientific struggle had passed. But something had changed. A small crack had appeared in the rigid walls of institutional scientific thinking. And through that crack, a new understanding was beginning to emerge. 1 year after that critical hearing, international scientific conferences buzzed with Arya's name. What had begun as a rejected research proposal now stood as a groundbreaking scientific achievement. The World Scientific Conference in Geneva became her moment of ultimate validation. Researchers from 63 countries gathered, their attention focused on the silver-skinned alien scientist who had transformed genetic research. Jay watched from the audience, pride filling his chest. He remembered the cold night when he found her on New Aurora's streets, a forgotten researcher with broken dreams. Now she stood confidently, presenting research that could change human survival strategies. Her presentation revealed genetic modification techniques that could help humans adapt to extreme environments. Radiation zones, low-oxygen planets, and extreme temperature regions were no longer impossible challenges. Her research offered practical solutions that traditional scientific approaches had never imagined. Dr. Marcus Thompson, who once challenged her research, now sat in the front row. His previous skepticism had transformed into professional respect. Scientific communities worldwide recognized the revolutionary nature of her work. These modifications, Arya explained, her translator rendering her words with clinical precision, represent more than scientific theory. They represent human potential. International research institutions began competing to collaborate with her. Funding proposals flooded her digital communications. What was once a rejected concept now became the most discussed scientific breakthrough of the decade. Helena Rodriguez, who had initially introduced Arya's work, now managed her research team. Her professional reputation had grown alongside Arya's success. They had become a powerful scientific partnership, breaking institutional barriers. Jay's role became legendary in scientific circles. A simple emergency medical technician who had supported an alien researcher, providing shelter and opportunity when no one else would. Universities began discussing his story in professional development seminars. The genetic modification techniques Arya developed weren't just theoretical. Initial medical trials showed promising results. Patients with rare genetic disorders saw potential treatment pathways. Space exploration agencies recognized the research's implications for long-duration space missions. New Aurora, the city where Arya's journey began, became a symbol of scientific inclusivity. Immigration policies for research professionals slowly started changing. Her success demonstrated that scientific potential knew no planetary boundaries. International media covered her story. From a homeless alien researcher to a global scientific icon, Arya's journey represented hope. Her silver skin, once a marker of difference, now symbolized scientific innovation. Jay remained her closest supporter. He continued working as a medical technician, but his professional network had expanded. Research institutions respected him as a critical connection between practical medical experience and innovative scientific research. The research that began in a small apartment had transformed global scientific understanding. Genetic adaptation was no longer a distant dream but a tangible possibility. Arya's work suggested humans could modify their biological structures to survive in environments previously considered impossible. During her final conference presentation, Arya acknowledged Jay publicly. "One human's compassion," she said, "changed the trajectory of my scientific journey." The audience erupted in applause. Scientists, researchers, and international delegates recognized the deeper story. Not just of scientific achievement, but of human kindness transcending institutional, cultural, and planetary boundaries. As conferences concluded and research papers were published, Arya's journey became more than a personal success story. It represented a fundamental shift in scientific thinking, a demonstration that breakthrough innovations often emerge from unexpected places. The city of New Aurora, once just a background to her struggle, now celebrated her as a scientific pioneer. Local universities established research grants in her name, supporting immigrant and international researchers facing institutional challenges. Jay watched these developments with quiet satisfaction. He had not sought recognition. His act of kindness on a cold night had been simple and human, offering shelter to someone in need. But that simple act had changed everything. Arya's research crystals, which once projected uncertain genetic sequences in a small apartment, now illuminated scientific conferences worldwide. Each holographic image represented more than data, they were windows into human potential. The story of an alien researcher and a compassionate human had become a global narrative of hope, innovation, and unexpected connection. The night was cold and unforgiving in New Aurora, a sprawling city where dreams often died on concrete streets. Aryakova sat pressed against a brick wall, her silver-tinted skin reflecting the dim streetlights. She looked nothing like the confident researcher she once was, now reduced to a broken figure, abandoned and forgotten. Her research visa had been revoked 3 weeks ago. The prestigious Interstellar Science Consortium had stripped her of her credentials, citing insufficient adaptation protocols and marginal scientific contribution. In reality, Arya knew it was because she was an outsider, a researcher from a distant planet who dared to challenge established scientific norms. The city was brutal to immigrants, especially alien researchers. Her translator device hung broken around her neck, a symbol of her current state of defeat. Cold wind cut through her thin research uniform, a remnant of her past life. She had no money, no connections, and no hope. Jay Park walked down the street, his emergency medical technician jacket pulled tight against the chill. He had just finished a long night shift at the city hospital, his mind tired but alert. Most people would have walked past the huddled figure, but something about her posture caught his attention. She wasn't begging. She wasn't crying. She was simply existing, her eyes fixed on some distant point that only she could see. Her body language spoke of profound loss and quiet dignity. Jay hesitated. Helping an alien wasn't easy in New Aurora. The city's policies toward immigrant researchers were strict and often cruel. But something in Arya's demeanor, a mixture of intellectual pride and current vulnerability, made him pause. "Are you okay?" he asked, knowing she might not understand. Arya looked up, her eyes large and slightly iridescent, meeting his. For a moment, they communicated without words. Survival. Desperation. A tiny spark of hope. Her damaged translator crackled to life, producing a fragmented response. Research, lost. No place. Cold. Jay understood enough. He knew the risks of helping an alien researcher. Public opinion was harsh, government regulations were complex, and personal involvement could mean professional complications. But something told him this wasn't an ordinary situation. "My apartment is nearby," he said slowly, carefully. "You can warm up. Rest." Arya studied him, trying to understand his motivation. In her experience, humans rarely offered help without an ulterior motive. But exhaustion and cold were powerful motivators. She nodded slightly. As they walked, Jay noticed how she moved precise, calculated, like a scientist always observing. Her gait suggested training, discipline. Whatever had happened, she was more than just another lost immigrant. His small apartment was modest but clean. He offered her a blanket, some hot tea, simple gestures of humanity that seemed to surprise her. She wrapped the blanket around her shoulders, her silver skin slowly regaining some warmth. "What happened?" Jay asked, sitting across from her. Arya's story emerged in fragments. She had been a researcher specializing in adaptive biological systems. Her work challenged existing scientific understanding about genetic modification and species adaptation. But the scientific community, both on her home planet and on Earth, had rejected her theories. "They said my research was too radical," she explained, her translator now working more smoothly. "But I know I'm right." Jay recognized that tone. He had seen it in dedicated medical professionals, in researchers who believed in something beyond current understanding. Her passion was evident, even in her current defeated state. Outside, New Aurora continued its relentless rhythm. Vehicles moved, lights flickered, and the city maintained its indifferent pulse. But inside this small apartment, something unexpected was happening. A connection between two individuals from completely different worlds. Aryakova, once a promising researcher, and Jay Park, a simple emergency medical technician, had found each other on a cold night. Neither knew then how this encounter would change everything. The night settled around them, pregnant with possibility and unwritten stories. The morning light crept through Jay's apartment windows, casting soft shadows on Arya's silver-tinted skin. She had slept fitfully, her body still adjusting to Earth's environment and the unfamiliar comfort of a human living space. Jay prepared simple breakfast: rice, eggs, and green tea. He noticed how carefully Arya watched his movements, her scientific mind constantly analyzing everything around her. When he placed the food in front of her, she studied it with the same intensity she might have examined a complex biological sample. "You don't have to stay," Jay said, breaking the silence. "But you need a plan." Arya's translator worked better now, translating her thoughts with more clarity. "My research files," she said, "they are my only valuable possession. Everything I've worked for is in those data crystals. She explained how her research on adaptive biological systems could revolutionize medical understanding. Her work focused on genetic modifications that could help species adapt to extreme environments. The scientific community had labeled her theories as too radical, too dangerous. Jay listened carefully. As a medical technician, he understood the potential of groundbreaking research. He had seen countless cases where traditional medical approaches failed patients. "Can I see your research?" he asked. Arya hesitated. Trust did not come easily to her. Her experiences had taught her that sharing scientific work often meant potential theft or ridicule. But something about Jay's genuine curiosity made her pause. She pulled out a small crystal-like device. Complex scientific diagrams and intricate genetic sequences flickered across its surface. Jay recognized some medical terminology, but much of it was beyond his immediate understanding. These modifications, Arya explained, could help humans survive in environments previously considered impossible. Extreme temperatures, low oxygen conditions, radiation exposure. Her passion was evident. Each word carried the weight of years of research, of dreams crushed but not completely destroyed. Jay saw more than just scientific data, he saw a story of determination. The apartment felt different now. No longer just a temporary shelter, it had become a small laboratory of possibility. Arya began explaining her research, her hands moving expressively, translating complex scientific concepts into something almost poetic. Jay's medical background helped him understand parts of her research. He asked questions, not to challenge, but to understand. Each question seemed to spark something in Arya. A renewed sense of purpose. "The scientific community rejected me," she said, "but my research is sound. I know it." Outside, New Aurora continued its busy rhythm. Government offices processed paperwork, research institutions maintained their strict hierarchies, and immigrant researchers like Arya struggled to find recognition. But here, in this small apartment, something unique was happening. A human and an alien researcher were finding a common language not just through her translator, but through shared curiosity and respect. Jay made a decision. "I know some people in medical research," he said. "Not top-level researchers, but people who might be interested in your work." Arya looked at him, surprised. Her experience had taught her that humans rarely took risks for strangers, especially alien researchers. But Jay seemed different. As the day progressed, they began organizing her research files. Jay's organizational skills complemented Arya's scientific precision. They worked together, two individuals from different worlds, united by a shared goal of understanding. The city outside continued its indifferent momentum. But inside this apartment, a quiet revolution was beginning, a tentative alliance between a human medical technician and an alien researcher, both believing in the power of scientific discovery. Arya realized that her journey was far from over. And for the first time since losing her research position, she felt a glimmer of hope. The research crystals glimmered, holding secrets that could change everything. Weeks passed, and Jay's small apartment transformed into an impromptu research space. Scattered papers, digital screens, and complex scientific equipment filled every available surface. Arya's research crystals projected holographic images of genetic sequences that danced across makeshift screens. Dr. Helena Rodriguez, Jay's former medical school colleague, visited unexpectedly. Her initial skepticism was visible in her tight facial expression. Foreign researchers, especially alien scientists, were viewed with suspicion in the competitive medical research community. "Show me," she said, her voice professional but guarded.